Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here on this beautiful, gorgeous, magnificent Tuesday afternoon. My name is James Fauntleroy. Wonderful, wonderful to have you here. The Jaybefaunt channel is available on all major podcast platforms, so go ahead and subscribe to me there. Also part of the Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can find me there on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. If you have not already, and if you would like to get email notifications, you guys can go ahead and go to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com. The email notifications for YouTube are not that reliable, so go ahead and get me a sub there so that you guys can know whenever I go live or upload clips. Now, I just wanted to say thank you to all the patrons on Patreon Coffee as well as members. Without you guys, I would not be able to do this. So thank you so very much to all of you. This also means so much to me because, well, without you guys, I would not be able to have this channel. And as well as in addition to anybody who also gives me any type of patrons on Patreon patrons who may also give me any super chats or things like that. I also want to give my heartfelt thanks to all of you. Why isn't this not working? You know, when things are going good and then something goes wrong, that annoys me. But anyway, I'll put that back up in a little bit. But anyway, so moving on, as per usual, because I like to show the list of my patrons on Patreon, but you guys can also see them, Patreon and Coffee. You guys can see them scrolling down here as well. Just wanted to also say hello to all the people in the chat. Good to see all of you here. As per usual, whenever I have a guest, I wait till the end in order to give my salutations to all of you. So hello as a cover to all, but I would like to introduce my guest. She is a former candidate for Texas governor under the Green Party, Miss Delilah Barrios. Delilah.
Hi. Hi, friend. How are you?
AKA Lady D.
I'm ready.
Like, I'm ready. Let's get this party started. Okay. So one of the things that, I know that you speak for indigenous rights. You speak for rights concerning anybody who is marginalized and oppressed within our nation, which you have my definite respect for that. There's something that I wanted to address first before we get into our stories. This is something that I am going to be as measured as I possibly can be, because I want to, as they say, appeal to the better angels of different people. So last night, Jimmy Dore had on Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on his show. And in doing so, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was live in studio, whatever you want to call it. Jimmy does he does stream from his house. And so he had Robert RFK Jr. at his house. And it was a lengthy discussion. It was about a 3-hour interview. I caught 2 hours and 40 minutes of the interview. As far as the interview goes, I do have a little bit of an issue. And that primary issue is, number one, there was this 65,000-pound elephant in the room. And that elephant in the room was the issue regarding Israel and Palestine. The Palestinian and Israel issue is one that it touches my heart, because I see the Palestinians like I see the Black people in this nation. And I know, Delilah, you see a lot of overlap between Palestinians and the indigenous people in this nation as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be in Jimmy's house, which is a very intimate thing to me, and for him to spew the inaccuracies and falsehoods about the Palestinian people with mild pushback from Jimmy, I feel is a disservice to Jimmy's audience. I feel it's a disservice to all of us who are watching.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Jimmy could have done a lot better. It was very mild.
Right.
And if you wish to, chime in, that's fine. You're not under any pressure to, but
I only want to say I didn't watch it because I watch y'all. So I don't watch Jimmy Dore. And the first time I heard RFK Jr. speak at all was when I was on a panel with Sabby, actually. And I was trying to hide the shock in my face at how his voice sounds because I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that. And so for me, I didn't watch the interview, but if you didn't say, you as a politician claiming to be somebody who cares about the general welfare for people, that if you should be able to say free Palestine. If you can't, you're weak. And if he was being very mild, it speaks to the fact that he's probably not well versed or capable of handling that kind of pushback either way. And so to be soft on people, just because you're trying to do them favors, 3 hours is a lot of time to expect from somebody, like especially your audience. You know what I'm saying? And if you can't just maintain that you're on the side of liberation and general, welfare and peace for all, then you are not a good person and you're not a progressive candidate.
Well, one of my biggest issues is he didn't get into the Israel-Palestine issue until 2 hours and 40 minutes in. So it was the last 20 minutes of
Okay.
talking to get into it. And the thing is that the issue of just saying free Palestine and, the issue with saying that, because he said that I'm not very versed on it. My question is, then get versed on it. Because
Right.
you're having this candidate for president as commander in chief in your presence. And I don't find it fair that Jimmy Dore had basically all this smoke for Dr. Cornel West when he interviewed with Anderson Cooper and he was talking about the Ukraine issue and said that he wasn't prepared enough for that. And yet you have RFK Jr. on, but you didn't prepare adequately to talk about the biggest element in the room, the elephant in the room that a lot of us have an issue regarding RFK Jr. You didn't prepare for that. It's like it feels kind of hypocritical because you have all that smoke for Dr. West, and yet you did the same thing regarding RFK Jr.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that that's fair, to people like Dr. West. If you feel like you didn't have to, you're the one who's interviewing and you're the one who needs to fact check the person that's in front of you. And so you did a little bit, but was it clearly enough in order to, and plus, unfortunately, RFK Jr. actually filibustered large chunks of the interview where he was just going on and on and on and on and on, and no interruption, no pushback. And there's times where I feel like, yeah, it's not polite to interrupt, but when someone keeps putting inaccuracies and falsehoods one after another, you have to get to a point where you have to interrupt and you have to correct them on the record. Because the thing is that he literally had 25,000 people watching live. And some of these people are going to take what Robert F. Kennedy says as fact when in reality, there's a lot of things that's going on the ground regarding Palestinians and Black people in Israel that a lot of people just don't know, especially regarding Ethiopian Jews. And so I think that I need to say that someone like RFK Jr. saying what he said in the independent media space, if he says something inaccurate and false like that, there has to be pushback. And I'm not saying that, oh, don't invite him on. I'm not one of those people. I say, yes, invite them on and then challenge them vociferously.
Mm.
You know?
That's the difference, though. I mean, especially in independent media, you really expect to have this litmus test, you know, in effect. Like, you don't get to exist in this space if you're a shitlib, and you don't get to exist in this space if you're somebody who cannot advocate for liberation, you know? And so it is weird because the Ukraine issue has been at the forefront of conversations, at least for the better part of the year, if not longer than that, you know, with the defense budget and everything like that. It seems like an easy call, at least, if to exist in this space and say, you know, we don't want to keep sending all this money. It's a problem. And so I feel like there's been a lot of time to discuss that, but not longer than what's been like the West Bank has been in the news since what decade? I don't know, longer. And so it's like, so to me, it's not so much misinformation. It's not so much like, oh, I'm not well versed on the subject, I don't have my information. It's more or less, I'm comfortable with the status quo's opinion on this. I'm comfortable with Israel and the police state that exists in both countries. And, you know, I think that that's the problem when you have these candidates, these like fringe candidates, right? There's not going to be debates. I don't know what all this is about, honestly, but we have these fringe candidates and you're like, oh, you're challenging the narrative. Are you though? And if you're not consistently, then that is very suspicious. And I would lose a lot of respect for him if I was a journalist like you all are. I don't think that's, he should, you know, apologize for that.
Well, I mean, look, and just to put a fine point on it, he's running as a Democrat.
Right.
And if I'm correct, if Jimmy Dore, if you realize that the Democratic Party is as bad as you say it is, then I was under the impression that at one time you said you would never have a Democrat on your show like that again. And another thing, and this was shared by Sabby. Shout out to Sabby Sab. She says, why are people ignoring he's funded by a super PAC? All the people who said don't take corporate money now seem to be okay with it. That's a problem. And it shows that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is taking super PAC money. Says Timothy Mellon, the GOP mega donor, and Gilead Age Scion, who put $5 million in. Gavin DeBecker, a security consultant whose most famous client is Jeff Bezos, who donated $4.5 million. And here is the disclosures. So the thing is that, you know, why are, you know, if you know this guy is behaving and sounding like a standard issue Democrat, and you know that this person really is not going to fight against the status quo, given the actions and the rhetoric, then why even bother having him on?
Yeah.
Anyway, like, that's my question.
I mean, money talks, right? There are the receipts.
And so I think it is important for us to take into consideration that if they're running in the duopoly, it's because they approve of the duopoly status quo nature. And so I think that is something that also needs to be taken into account. And look, it is quite apparent. And shout out to all the people who follow me, because once I tweeted out about this, they were posting receipts left and right, and they were just like, here you go, JB. And like, look at this. This is reprehensible. E pluribus reginum says, you're not lying. It's an ethno state. This stuff gets very deep to keep everyone from realizing that it's mutated into something worse than Zionism, settler colonialism. Israel's ethnic cleansing is more extensive than most realize. And this says Israel admits to sterilizing Black Ethiopian Jewish immigrants without their knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, they're no better than ICE down here. I mean, that's why it's a mirrored struggle for what Indigenous people had to continue to go through on this, you know, on our own soil. That struggle of displacement, of colonization is very close to ours. And so it's very shameful to hear people try to justify it, because what they're saying is they're very comfortable with the injustice. They're very comfortable with the loss of life. They're very comfortable with the money that is being extracted from these places. And, you know, anybody who's comfortable with the police state is not on the side of the working class. Simply put, they aren't. And, you know, I don't know why he's been framed as some outside the box, you know, person. He's, to me, you know, I think I was a little tired from politics for a minute, but I didn't really find him to be impressive. You know what I mean? I think he has that method to dodge questions and shift, you know, where the conversation is going very easily. And it's, you know, I guess that's a skill set. But for, you know, people who are paying attention, especially those of us who are not in any way like wealthy or, you know, provided for or whatever, why would you put your time and your money and your support behind somebody who doesn't care about you and doesn't care about your family or your circles, you know? Yeah. I don't know. I think there's just this like very bad thirst for, you know, a challenge to the media narrative, and then it stops at that, and that's not enough, you know?
But the thing is that challenge to the media narrative is only one-sided, because if it goes against the jab, but what about Palestinians being murdered left and right by the IDF? I mean, that's also a media narrative. And so my thing is like, we can't be one-sided on this either. And I'm not saying that Jimmy is one-sided, but the thing is that it sounds like RFK Jr. is. And I think that deserved pushback as far as the way in which he was saying all these things. Like, look, and I know some people have seen this before, but I'm going to show this. You know, this was 10 years ago. It says, y'all remember back 10 years ago when Africans were seeking refuge and asylum in Israel? Y'all remember how they were welcome. And this just shows how a lot of people, a lot of Israelis are also anti-Black. I'm just going to show this really quick. He says, it's not too late. We can take action tomorrow. Start rounding up the infiltrators. We don't need to wait for the Supreme Court. He said, we don't need to wait for anything. Round them up tomorrow morning. She says, outside my house, I see ish, spit, and psychopaths. Just waiting for the chance to murder me. You can see it in their eyes. That's what she's saying. She said, but nobody believes us. Quote, you're racist. Says we're racist because we want to preserve our lives and our sanity. She says, so I'm proud to be a racist, and it is our right to be racist. She says, if I'm racist in order to preserve my life, then I'm proud.
While protests raged in the streets against the presence of asylum seekers from Africa, the man who held the power to determine their fate, Deputy Prime Minister Eli Yishai, demanded their expulsion.
He says, if they grant me all the tools and I am trying to acquire all, and it's not easy. If they grant me all the tools without exception, in less than a year, not a single infiltrator will remain in the state of Israel.
And the few isolated Israelis who dared to protest, like this woman, were met with harsh backlash.
He says, you should be ashamed of yourself. May you be R-worded. I can't say the word because it's on Twitter. Sexually assaulted. Amen. That's what they say.
Person. Oh, it's very settler, colonial, bigoted speech. Yeah,
and I just want to say that this isn't representative of all Israelis. There's some that actually are wanting to fight, and they are standing with the Palestinians. Just like, for instance, it's like not all Americans feel the same way. Of course, I want to make that distinction, but at the same time, it's the Israeli government that says a lot of these things, and then that infiltrates into the minds of a lot of the citizens who are also having this mindset against Palestinians, and so they have that support from the people to this government. And so I want to make sure that I say that, of course, there's a lot of Jewish people and a lot of people who are, within Israel who are also saying that we should not be doing what we're doing to the Palestinian people. I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, I don't like the narrative, the religious narrative to excuse the racism, because it very closely mirrors what happened here. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, I still have people who are getting stuck in ICE custody, and it's like it's only getting worse and worse. I mean, back when I first began my campaign, I was like, the police state is a big concern of mine, and it will continue to be so, because look at what's happening. Look at what's happening all over. And we have these concepts in our mind, and then we think that somehow we're, excused from facing any of the violence or facing any of the harm that comes to these other communities, as if we're outside. You know what I'm saying? But it's right here. I mean, the people, it could just turn into another militarized police state, just like after Ferguson, just like after George Floyd. And it's like people are afraid of that, and they think, oh, well, let me pick a side. I'm going to go ahead and pick the side of the military and the state and the police because that's safer. But it isn't. It doesn't. They don't care. You know what I'm saying? They don't care if you're back there waving your silly little flags. You know what I'm saying? They'll run over your house too. So it's just, I don't know why people can be so removed from these discussions. I don't know how to do that. I think that's very naive,
Yeah. And the one thing, and I'll say this last thing, for anybody who says that they do not care, and some people may find me dogmatic for saying this, but it's whatever. For anybody who says that the Israel-Palestine conflict is not that big of a deal to them, the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, trained the police officers in the United States. Those same police forces that gunned down my people here. And if you do not care about what the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians via the IDF, then do you really care about the IDF who trains the police forces to gun down Black people in the United States? Because this is something that I think that people need to realize. When you're Black or Indigenous, like my friend here, we know what it's like to be marginalized, because we are. Even more so because you're a woman as well. And so when you're marginalized, you tend to see other marginalized people as yourself. So whether it's Palestinian, whether it's the Aboriginals in Australia, right? Whether it's people in the DPRK, whether it's people, Black people or Indigenous people in Bolivia, whoever it is, whether it's people in Haiti, we see the disenfranchised as we see ourselves. And so it is incumbent upon you to realize that when we see the suffering of a Palestinian kid that's being, hit with the butt of a rifle because he dared throw a pebble at an Israeli soldier, we have a problem with that. Because that cellular colonial project that they're doing, that's basically ousting people off their land. Like, if you're going to make excuses for that, then are you going to make the same excuses for the British colonies that came on Turtle Island that pushed out Indigenous people from their land? Are you going to make excuses for the same people that did what they did to Delilah's people? Because let's be real, that's what you're doing. And I think that some pushback should have happened. And I think those of us in independent media need to do better. And I'm talking to myself too, but we need to do better, because these people are literally running to be the commander-in-chief of the most powerful nation in the world that has used imperialism and colonialism to its own ends. And I think we can do better. And I think we should. Any last words, Delilah, before I move on?
That was very well said. I just want to add that it shows, to me personally, when I hear these conversations and I hear people say that struggle's not my struggle, or it's not, or minimize these issues, I know for a fact that that person is not somebody that I would ever want to be in community with. I wouldn't want to be close with. I wouldn't want to organize with them, because if you can't meet, because for me that's the bare minimum. That's the criteria you have to meet. You know what I'm saying? For us to be equals, for us to be respectful to each other. If you can't meet there, then I'd have no business. I assume that, I'll assume the worst, because it's not only necessary that the military and the police state work together, it's also necessary to have people turning and to look the other way and justify this. Those people are cowards, and I don't have any respect for them. So I'm not here to, like, I don't care if it hurts people's feelings, because your feelings are not more important than some people's lives.
Yeah.
And I'll just.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's a human rights issue.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on. So what are we going to be talking about today? Get into our main stories. So I have 4 stories we're going to be getting into. First one is one for Dioxane, and why do I have the state of Florida there? So we're going to be talking about that. Also, GRINDR Union. That's going to be a fun one. I can't wait to get into that. That's going to be good. Also, I have these African leaders, and I have Macron being kicked out. So what's going on with France and Africa? Ooh, this is a good one. I can't wait for that one. And then I'm going on a rant because I this is something that's, basically grinded my gears for a while, so I can't wait to get into it. So,
You know what? Can I
Mhm.
just real quick?
Sure.
When I woke up this morning, I was like, I watched that video of Macron, condemning other nations, and I almost cried happy tears because I was like telling my kids, I was like, it's so great. He's just losing it. He's so upset. They have all this gold. They have their fourth on the tier of like gold reserves. I'm sorry, does gold come from France? No, it doesn't. So
No.
yeah, I'm so just excited. I was always a big Thomas Sankara fan, and I loved what he did in Burkina Faso. Oh, women hold up half the sky. Come on. Come on. It's beautiful. I love it. So I'm ready to talk about that whenever. I just wanted to say that was
Okay. All right.
on my list this morning.
I'm gonna do my first story. The France story. The African and France story is gonna be right afterwards. I'm gonna go over this first story really quick because this is very important. But I also want to go over that France story because that one is just I can't wait. So, but we're gonna warm up with this first story. So 1,4-dioxane. So 1,4-dioxane is a chemical that is used in the processes of making certain things. It could be used in detergents. It could be used in like soaps, things like that. Well, unfortunately, 1,4-dioxane is actually in our water here in Florida, as well as in the United States. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Nothing. I'm listening.
Oh, okay. And so let me go to here. So this is out of the Orlando Sentinel and says industrial chemical infiltrated Lake Mary, Sanford, Seminole Waters wells. Few knew, and there was no coordinated response. So this is actually near me. This is north of me. Near Orange, just outside of Orange County, into Seminole County, here in Central Florida. So just going to read a little bit. Let me enlarge this just a little bit so that everybody can see. It says for years and even decades, tens of thousands of people in Northwest Seminole County, Lake Mary, and Sanford have been drinking water containing a toxic industrial chemical at varying concentrations. The chemical 1,4-dioxane is deemed likely to cause liver and kidney cancer and other illnesses by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Labeled as a contaminant of emerging concern, it is obscure enough that not even utility managers in the county were aware of it until relatively recently, and some did not know until informed by the Sentinel in recent months. 1,4-dioxane pollution has infiltrated hundreds of feet underground into the Florida aquifer, the region's source of drinking water. Just one second. If you don't mind, you might need to mute for a second because I think I can hear myself.
Oh,
Hang on.
let's see.
Oh, I can do it if you need. Uh-oh. What'd she do? Uh-oh. Okay.
Mute me. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Quickly mute really quick. So, can I hear myself? Oh, no. Okay. It got fixed. Oh, well. Anyway, let's keep going. Okay. So the contamination has spread out into an area of a few square miles where the utilities of Lake Mary, Sanford, and Seminole County have wells pumping up millions of gallons, according to various investigations. Health research on the chemical drinking water is sparse and dated. Voluntary guidelines for 1,4-dioxane concentrations range widely among states and countries, underscoring enormous and unsettling uncertainty about its potential harm. But public utilities would never want a suspected carcinogen of any amount in drinking water they supply to homes, schools, and businesses, with many officials of Lake Mary, Sanford, and Seminole counties saying as much. So this goes into how It is basically toxic drinking water within Florida. And so it says it's linked to a defunct factory. Um, so it says the discovery of 1,4-dioxane in Seminole County's drinking water and the ensuing responses epitomizes a national challenge. There are hundreds of poorly known contaminants infiltrating air, water, and food. Even as scientists are able to measure their tiniest quantities, the chemicals remain largely unregulated and unwatched. And this is the point. It says those impacted in Seminole County cut across large demographic swath. These include poor Black neighborhoods of Sanford, upscale communities in the county such as Heathrow, and Lake Mary's big employment centers such as Verizon and Deloitte. It says learning decades ago of a probable carcinogen in their tap water, 3 local utilities responded differently in attitudes and actions. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was show people what this this carcinogen is and how it can affect people. Did you want to include anything, Delilah, before I start with the video? Are you hello? Oh, oops. Sorry. Did you want to include anything before I start the video?
No, go ahead. I'm just gonna mute myself. So.
No. You're fine now because I can't hear myself anymore.
Oh, great. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Is this going on? Okay. All right. Well, I guess it's not linked anymore. Okay.
Well, I mean, carcinogens in the water is a big problem. What is that? Millions of people drink from that.
Yeah. Yep. And that's the problem. So let me share my screen really quick and we'll get into what it is and how it can affect you about 1,4-dioxane.
Okay, so 1,4-dioxane is a synthetic chemical. So it was synthesized. It's man-made, doesn't exist in nature. And my research, it said it was first synthesized in 1863. Oh. So it's been around a long time. And then the chemical structure is actually kind of cool. I won't put it up, but I wish I had my organic chemistry kits from before so you'd be able to see it. But it's a cyclic ether. So there's 2 oxygens and then it just forms a hexagon. So it's kind of cool. But the reason it's used is it's a solvent or a stabilizer when making other chemicals. So they use it in a lot of things. They don't use it as its own thing. Okay. So you'll find it in things like paint strippers, dyes, greases, antifreeze, de-icing fluids, and also consumer products like deodorants, shampoos, and cosmetics. And you won't see in the ingredients 1,4-dioxane, but what you might see is that it's a byproduct or a low-level contaminant in things like polyethylene glycol or PEG, which sometimes you'll see that as a surfactant or something like something that allows your shampoo to not separate, the different components of the shampoo. And so detergents, foaming agents, emulsifiers, and solvents. So if it uses polyethylene glycol, there may be some 1,4-dioxane associated contamination, but it wouldn't be in there as a separate ingredient.
Okay, so if you go to your bathroom cabinet right now and try to look for 1,4-dioxane, you won't find it.
You won't find it
It's
listed
hidden.
as a separate
Okay.
item. No.
Okay.
But it is used in combination. It is used as an associated chemical in a lot of the manufacturing. So apparently bench scientists use it. It's used to purify pharmaceutical ingredients. How I first heard about it is many, many years ago, I worked for a company that made filters, like microporous membranes. And they actually used 1,4-dioxane in its manufacturing process. And that.
So have you ever, can you hear me, Delilah? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Have you ever heard of this before?
No, I haven't heard of that chemical compound before.
Yeah, because I know you were in the medical field, so I'm not sure if you ever had heard of it before, but I just heard about it when I saw this story, and I was just like, what in the world is this? This stuff is in our drinking water, and we have no idea.
Yeah, I will say most of my knowledge that I've acquired over the years has been about, fertilizers and glyphosate, things like that are in our parks and ends up in our waterways and things like that. And that's something that it's a carcinogen as well. So this being kind of unseen or like not really on any labels before is concerning, because it's like, what if it's attached to something, right? It doesn't exist on its own, or at least that's what this woman's saying. So what is being used so much that's creating this, popping up in the water? Like, is it a combination of all these other things?
Mm-hmm.
Is it something that could be solved if we used more gray water? I don't know. I have more questions than answers, really. So
Yeah. Let's continue really quick.
It actually caused a very big problem later on, but we can get to that later. But yeah, so it's found associated with a lot of things, but you won't necessarily find it by itself.
Okay. Cool. Well, not cool, but
interesting. Right. It's interesting in a concerning way.
Yeah. So I guess, why do we care about 1,4-dioxane in these products? And we'll get to it in a second in regards to drinking water, but why should we care? Are there health impacts associated with 1,4-dioxane? Like, what do we need to know about how it affects our bodies?
Well, so there's two forms of 1,4-dioxane. There's the airborne form, and then there's also the form that is in drinking water. And so they do know, and I just had my notes. Where are my notes? 1,4-dioxane poses a cancer risk when it's released into the air and people breathe it. And this is according to the EPA, that it's regulated as a hazardous air pollutant. So they do have more studies. They do have information on 1,4-dioxane as being hazardous when it's airborne. But it doesn't stay around in the air. It degrades in the atmosphere. And then it's very miscible in water. It's highly soluble, and it's been found in groundwater. And because it's so soluble, it disperses in the water very, very quickly. Okay. And it's also very hard to remove. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, so it is once again, the EPA has indicated that 1,4-dioxane is a likely human carcinogen, and it has been found in groundwater sites throughout the U.S. So, they know it's there. They think it's going to cause issues in groundwater, but it's kind of interesting. It's also considered, it's on the list of contaminants. I think it's on the 4th list of emerging contaminants.
Yeah.
But then they just finished doing a risk assessment, and their risk assessment says that they don't think there's health risks in the water.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yes, this is infuriating. Of course it's not. They're going to be like, oh, we paid these guys to say that it's fine. These scientists say that climate change isn't real. Like, it seems like old tactics,
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and my thing is like, it's not that big of an issue. Who else said that it's not that big of an issue? Didn't fossil fuel companies say that it wasn't that big of an issue back then?
Oh yeah, they sure did, and they still do.
Like this is man.
Yeah, I was talking to my kids the other day about carcinogens, and I was like, I think we were talking about aspartame, and there was this big there was kind of like some work against, making sure people were more aware about aspartame and things like that. And I was like, okay, but you look at the studies, right? Like, no doctor I ever worked with could say definitively this person has a tumor that was caused by aspartame. That just doesn't exist, right? Nobody's going to say that. But what they did find is that they gave like increased amounts to lab rats, and they grew tumors, and they're dosing them with like, something that's like far exceeds what a human would consume. And it's like, I don't really understand. It's like, okay, so now we're not going to talk about that anymore. Now we're going to talk about this. Now this is an issue. And it's like, none of this is unbiased. It doesn't feel like. And the public is just left like wondering, you know what I mean? What's really in my water? What's really in the air? What's really, you know what I mean? At least people who are conscious of things like that. And so it is so frustrating that it's like a continual environmental racism, and you know what I mean? If we control the water, then we control the populations, and that's all very fashy.
Yeah. I also wanted to add this point by Jenna. Jenna says, but yet the EPA is still claiming there was no levels of concern regarding blowing up the 5 train cars full of toxic FL on the border between Ohio and Pennsylvania back in last February. So Jenna's referring to what happened in Norfolk Southern and East Palestine, Ohio. They also said that there was no concern, and yet people are suffering health-wise in East Palestine and in other places in Pennsylvania, and are even able to smell it all the way in Canada.
Yeah. No, and they're always going to minimize it because they don't have to take the risks. You know what I'm saying? They're going to limit the testing to things that don't alarm people. And, the media is not going to go interview kids who are throwing up, blood or anything. They don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, oh, it's fine. On to next week's news. Oh, look, the president's on the beach. Like, we don't care about that, And like, people are being actively poisoned in our country.
Yep.
And there's no oversight. And these corporations are so big that when they do screw up and they murder a town or something horrible happens, they just pay it off. They just write a check and don't worry about it. You know what I mean? We won't talk about it anymore.
Yep.
It's a really abusive cycle.
Absolutely. Now we're going to go to if you can taste it, smell it, or see it. So just really quick.
Okay, so this next question, I think it's important to definitely acknowledge, because when we're talking about these really harmful contaminants that are really prevalent in water, you might assume that it's something that you can like see, taste, or smell. Like you might assume, oh, this contaminant might make my water discolored or might make it taste bad. But I'm guessing like that 1,4-dioxane is similar to other contaminants where that's not the case.
Exactly. I looked for the chemical information, and they do have that in, for most chemical classifications. So 1,4-dioxane is a colorless, clear liquid. It is completely miscible in water. So meaning that you won't even see it as, grains of anything. It won't make your water cloudy or anything. The only thing that I read was it has a faint, sweet odor similar to that of diethyl ether. Now, I haven't inhaled diethyl ether recently, so I couldn't tell you what that odor would be, but it is a faint, sweet odor. So my guess is, and that's, in its concentrated form.
Yeah.
So my guess is if it's in your water, you wouldn't be able to tell. Right. And
that's the scary part.
Mm.
That's the scary part. It's like like you could be pouring water out of your faucet and you can have it in there, but you wouldn't even know it. And then by the time you drink it, it's kind of too late.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's like the forever chemicals, you know what I mean? There and everything. It's like microplastics. Uh,
Yeah.
I need
And
a drink.
yeah. Yeah. We need something clear like vodka now.
I'm sorry. Like, to any sober people, I appreciate you. I think you're wonderful. But like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm getting a Hy-Vee, like just talking about. I didn't even know this was a new thing to worry about.
Yeah, yeah, this is also interesting. So now I'm going to get into somebody made a statement about reverse osmosis in the chat. Let's talk about that really quick, and we'll finish up here.
Okay, so final question. Is there a way to remove 1,4-dioxane from drinking water? We've kind of talked about its prevalence in groundwater and some of the negative things that make 1,4-dioxane problematic. But
Right.
Is there a way to remove it either at the municipal level or with residential filtration?
There's been studies and there have been evaluations done, and the state of New Jersey actually did one that was quite comprehensive. And there is a municipal level treatment that is currently being tested, I believe, in Long Island. It's called an advanced oxidation process. And so it has to do with irradiating with ultraviolet light and then treating with hydrogen peroxide. And according to this study, it is about up to 99% effective at removing 1,4-dioxane.
Sounds like sunlight and peroxide. Oh my God. Sounds like sunlight and peroxide.
Well, I mean, like, you can't smell it, you can't taste it. Like, it's completely, the way she's describing it, it's like it's clear, it disappears. You can't even tell that it's in anything,
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
And like, how would you take that out of a body of like a person? You're gonna irrigate somebody anyway. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, they actually cover that. I skipped over that part. I can give you the link so you can watch the rest of it. I didn't want to do the entire video because it's literally like a 15-minute video. But yeah, this is really interesting. And then they're going to go into also about reverse osmosis, because some people are saying, well, can you just filter it out? She actually gets into this as well.
So it's either ultraviolet light, or it also looks like ozone could be used.
Okay.
Ozone and hydrogen peroxide. Yeah, so ultraviolet and ozone is another way of doing it. So the advanced oxidation process, there's different ways you can do it, and it's very effective. The downside, it's very expensive. It's not something that can easily be slotted into a system that's already there.
Yeah.
It would be something they would have to add into it, which is why there are very few municipalities that are currently using it. Unfortunately, there's also some of the other methods that they evaluated.
So when she says that it's very expensive for municipalities to do it, one of the things that I'm thinking of immediately is, because I had Nelson Betancourt from the National Infrastructure Banking Coalition. He's trying to do one here in Orange County, and then Alfeka Maturity, who was from the National Infrastructure Banking Coalition. You can use a public bank in order to be able to finance something like this, which actually would be good for the county, even though it's expensive, is absolutely necessary. I mean, beyond that, if we were to have a country where the workers actually own the means of production, and we can actually have these things built, using public dollars, then we should all be able to have these different these types of water treatment centers in all municipalities across the country, so that we can have the cleanest drinking water possible.
I mean, yeah, there's no disagreement for me there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have something to say regarding home filtration systems, but we'll get to that in a second after she says regarding home filtration systems.
They talked about reverse osmosis and nanofiltration.
Mhm.
Reverse osmosis is somewhat effective, but they didn't actually give a percentage. They said RO in combination with other filtration methods might be better. Nanofiltration, they only got 46% removal.
Mm.
Granular activated carbon, which is probably the most common form of filtration that we run into. This was a pilot scale study, not at the home level, but I think this was using granulated activated carbon at the municipal level. They
Mhm.
said that there was 18% removal. So that's not very effective. They said if you use granulated activated carbon downstream of reverse osmosis, it was 56% effective. So those are methods that are commonly used. Unfortunately, they're not great. The other thing they mentioned was something, and this, once again, they were talking about at a large municipal level, but a synthetic media sorption unit. So they're basically talking about a type of chemical removal called sorption, where you're adsorbing chemicals onto essentially a carbon block. And this was a specific type of sorption unit. I'm not going to get into the brand name here, but it was up to 99% removal. This was, like I said, at the municipal level, it was very effective, but it's something that, you know, isn't in widespread use. So that's pretty much, those were the main things that they've tested and has been evaluated. And unfortunately, it's just not easy to remove from water.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
maybe soon there will be some sort of technology, but
yeah. So we've talked about, you know, can a Brita take it out? Probably not. But the problem is because we don't have national standards for 1,4-dioxane, it's really hard to say, okay, we're going to test it, and then we can say it's this percent effective. So it's really hard to be able to give anybody a definite, this will do the job.
right.
But we can say that studies are ongoing.
So
I love how in capitalism, it's our problem, the crap that they create that gives us cancer, and how it's so expensive to fix that instead of just preventing it from happening in the first place. It's our problem, right?
yeah,
If you happen to live in East Palestine when they detonated those, you know, trains, it's your fault that you can't move. It's your responsibility to take care. Those people didn't cause that explosion. You know,
Yeah.
they're not profiting off of the movement of such chemicals that are highly explosive and dangerous and toxic. So, you know, we don't even have nationalized anything useful for this country.
yeah,
Like it's always means tested. Oh my God. I had to ask for a glass of wine. Earlier when it went dark, I was like, asking my kid, like, please give me some wine because you know what I mean? Like, I don't know about this. You just told me about it today. I'm not ready. Like,
oh
just like, you know, crisis after crisis after crisis. I'm so nervous about water contamination all over, right? Because, like, when I was at work, I'm unemployed now, by the way, so I don't want to talk about it, but when I used to go to work, I would tell people wherever I was working, do you know where your water comes from? Oh, where do you live? Do you know where your water comes from? And they were like, no. Like, if it's municipal, they were like, I don't have to worry about it, right? Yeah, you do. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter where, like, we're just conditioned to think everything's fine.
yeah,
It's fine. You know what I mean? And then we have people with these horrible tumors. I lost a friend who was 37 and she had cancer. She had pancreatic cancer and died within a very short period of time. She was one of the most sweetest people on the planet. And they were like, what happened? What happened? You know, it's like, there's no accountability for the things that people have to go through as a result of, you know, corporate interests and capitalism and all of this private sector business that controls our economy. And it's really sad, you know what I mean? Because it's not just, again, like the narrative is like, it's your responsibility. You should be taking care of yourself. You should be filtering your water. You should be doing all that stuff. Why is that our responsibility? We're not poisoning ourselves.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We didn't make that decision. We didn't consent to this abuse. And, you know, it is very nerve-wracking to know that every day there's something else that it's around potentially killing people.
I mean, the onus shouldn't be on us. The onus should be on, you know, these centers that actually do the contamination.
Right. Like, I'm not going to say names, I know, but yes, they have names and addresses, okay? These businesses, corporations, and CEOs, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they should have, I think the narrative needs to shift higher focus on them screwing up instead of us having to fix it.
Absolutely. And this is something that I want to touch on. And I wrote some notes down because I wanted to make sure I remember to say this. But it seems like to me that if municipal water treatment facilities clean water so well that we wouldn't need home filtration systems, these home filtration companies would try to fight municipalities from making our water cleaner. This just shows how these corporations will push to make our environment worse just to make money off of us. So whenever you see how we need to filter our water more, well, Bretta may not like that, or these water filtration systems, or the people who make Dannon Water, Zephyr Hills, or any of these other bottled water companies, they actually don't want our water to be that much cleaner because that means there's no industry for them. Because what if all the water was reversed osmosed at these plants and then, you know, clean to the teeth, and then they somehow put back minerals, natural minerals in the water, and then deliver it straight to our homes? Then what? Then how would these companies market to us?
There are places that have one, you know, like these places that have clean water for their cities, or the places that are able to get their municipalities to extend, you know, their, I guess their, oh my God, I can't think of the word right now, but they're like, oh, I'm not going to work at that building because I am a wealthy politician and that water needs to be clean for me, even though, you know what I mean? Like their standards need to go and extend to the public's, right? And it's like, there is money to do that. And there are ways, there's a lot of people that argue that, you know, municipal politics is the best way to get things done because it's smaller, it's focused, you know what I mean? There's a lot of good success stories, but like I said, it's like an ever revolving door of crap that we have to deal with. Just as, I mean, a lot of people have full-time jobs, you know what I'm saying? They can't spend so many days down at city council trying to talk to people or petition and get signatures and things like that. But it is possible for us to, you know, kind of take better control of our government. But it's hard, you know, and it's hard by design.
Yeah. So that's what's going on in Central Florida and Orlando. If you guys would like the links to those stories, that's also in the description below. I made sure to put the archived version of the Orlando Sentinel article in there because you guys won't have to go to a paywall in order to read it. But yeah, so that's what's going on in Orlando. Before I get to my main story, please make sure to like the stream if you guys have not already. And if you guys have not, you guys can also subscribe to my Patreon or Ko-fi if you like to support the channel as well. Now to the primary story I've been wanting to cover with my homie kicked out. What in the hell is happening in Africa? Girl, look, hold on. Let me take my jacket off real quick. This is going to be good. Look, I'm going to be a little flamboyant with this because this is almost like spilling tea. This is like international tea. Like, girl, let me tell you. All right. I know you're excited. Look, let me tell you. All right. Hold on. Now, I want you guys to see. Oh, wait a minute. JB, get it together. Get it together, JB. All right, hang on. I'm going to show you guys who Ibrahim is. Oh, this guy. This dude. You're going to be like, what?
Oh, no. Yes.
Look. Okay. So I'm going to share this really quick. And this is the new president of Burkina Faso. Now, if anybody knows, Burkina Faso was a country that was ran, and the name was actually given Burkina Faso by Thomas Sankara. And Thomas Sankara was called the African Che Guevara. So you know where this is going. And I know you said that you also are a Thomas Sankara fan. What did Thomas Sankara mean to you?
Oh my God. He's just, the revolutionary leader that he didn't have any of that machismo, sexism attached to him at all. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that, you know what I mean? His fight for women's liberation alongside his own was so beautiful. And, I think just the fact that he nationalized so much, everybody, he made sure the literacy rates went up. Every child was vaccinated for, communicable diseases. He even made sure that the government had to downgrade the vehicles that they were driving. He was just an inspirational revolutionary leader, and just I don't know, he was really hot too. I'm just because he was dedicated. That dedication was so beautiful. You know what I'm saying? I have relatives who were like, oh, did you hear about this? And it's this quote about him, women holding up half the sky. You know what I mean? And I'm like, do you know who that is? He's a revolutionary socialist leader, and he did this and he did that. And so I'm so excited about what's happening right now, because I've been saying for a while now that actually France owes Haiti reparations because they taxed them, they stole so much from them. And so for things to be happening, everybody's like, oh, we should be like France. Oh, we should be like France. And I was like colonizers, or what? Or you just want better benefits? You know what I'm saying? Because I've been I make it difficult for people. But yes, I'm excited that Macron's losing his shit right now, and the Thomas Sankara inspired. You know what I mean? That movement didn't die. There's so much happening right now, but I'll let you get to it.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for that. You whet everybody's appetite with that one. Let's get into this. So. Let's get into this gentleman's statement. He is the new president of Burkina Faso. So let's take a look at what he says, and I'll pause to read so that if you're listening on the podcast, then you guys can know exactly what's being said. Said Africa is a continent. And how is it that our heads of state are crossing the world to beg? These are questions that we ask ourselves, and now we have no answer to so far. We have the opportunity to forge new relations.
Et j'espère que ces relations
I hope that these relations
puissent être les meilleures pour donner un meilleur
to give a people future to our people, to give a better future to our peoples.
avenir à nos peuples. Pour ce qui concerne le Burkina
As for Burkina Faso,
aujourd'hui,
today we have been confronted for more
sommes confrontés depuis plus de 8 ans
than 8 years
à la forme de
with the most barbaric, most
manifestation la plus
violent
barbare, la plus violente du néocolonialisme,
form of neocolonialism, imperialism.
de l'impérialisme. L'esclavage
Slavery still has to impose on us.
tend encore à nous imposer.
Sounds kind of like us, Delilah.
Oh no, yeah, I'm like, where do I get a poster? 'Cause I'm so glad. I'm glad because it's not just Burkina Faso. Like he's right. He's building these relations, and the imperialist nations are flipping out over it, and I love to see it. I love to see it.
So let me show this as well, so you guys can hear this. Look, it is going down in Africa, in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. It is going down. I'm telling you. Look, y'all need to start getting excited because I am.
We're gonna get to see the revolution in real time.
Ooh,
you know?
Telling. All right, let's listen.
Au nom de nos plus hautes autorités, j'ai l'insigne honneur de donner une lecture du communiqué conjoint numéro 001 du Burkina Faso et de la République du Mali. Communiqué.
This is in French. I don't speak French though.
Is this Assimi? Huh? He's from Mali, right? This is the guy from Mali?
Yeah.
So I know what he did.
So he's basically saying official announcement of Burkina Faso and Mali to join forces with Niger.
That's right.
So those three nations are actually joining forces. So let me get to this thread. This thread explains a lot. So let me grab it really. Okay. So Ibrahim Traore, that's the gentleman that I showed you guys first. I'm going to read this thread. This is going to be interesting. So just to give you a background of who this guy is. So yes, he did lead a coup in Burkina Faso, ousting their current president. The current president is basically a puppet of the West. And so this is the thread. It says, homeland or death, a threat on Burkina Faso under Ibrahim Traore. It says, on September 30th, 2022, a coup d'etat took place in Burkina Faso. Paul-Henri Damiba, an interim president who also had came into power via junta only 8 months prior, was deemed unable to address the ongoing Sahel insurgency in the country and ousted. Now, Delilah, if you need to interrupt, just feel free to interrupt and talk about your thoughts while I'm reading. It's cool. So he continues, says, Captain Ibrahim Traore would replace his former colleague, President Damiba, and become the world's youngest serving head of state at only 34 years old. This thread will attempt to list his biggest achievements in Burkina Faso since coming into power in autumn of 2022. So I can play this because it's in CNN. So
emerging through the turret of an armored vehicle was a 34-year-old self-appointed leader, Ibrahim Traore, waving to joyous crowds. This military takeover is Burkina Faso's second in 9 months, after an Islamist insurgency continued to roil the country under the previous ruler, President Paul-Henri Damiba. Shortly after taking power, Traore spoke with cabinet officials, urging them to move faster.
In Burkina, everything is urgent.
De la sécurité à la défense, à la santé.
Security, defense, health, social action, infrastructure, everything is urgent. We will have to go quickly.
Speaking to CNN in neighboring Ghana, Professor and author Techiwa Mainu said, the latest coup hurts the people the most.
Burkina does not have very great indicators of social and economic progress. So this instability is likely to worsen already poor indicators and blight the future.
When Traore was welcomed into the capital by supporters, they were waving Russian flags and chanting pro-Russia slogans, rejecting any ties to France.
We call on Russia. Whoever is the president that comes to power now, he can't involve France. We don't want France anymore.
Yes.
Yep.
So, are you going to get to the part where they pushed out France?
Don't ruin it for me.
This is the best part.
Look, we got to get to it. You got to warm people up to it, Delilah.
I'm a straight shooter, okay?
I know. That's why I love you. But we hold up. Let him simmer for a second.
Okay.
Okay. So it says among the first steps taken by President Traore will be the appointment of Kaliam de Tambela as the Prime Minister of Burkina Faso. Tambela, unlike most figures in Burkinabe politics, is a familiar face to popular consciousness in the small landlocked state. Now, he says, Tambela, as a student of France during the 1980s, founded the Committee for the Defense of the Revolution to defend and finance the struggle waged by Burkinabe masses under Thomas Sankara, affiliated with communists at the time. Tambela, as a lawyer and author, would publish his magnum opus under the title Thomas Sankara and the Revolution in Burkina Faso, an experience of self-centered development. His own detailed account of the Burkinabe Revolution as led by Thomas Sankara. As while invoking Karl Marx, Vladimir Lenin, and Franz Fanon in the academic realm, Tambela would initiate his premiership with 50% cuts to the salaries of government ministers. Reiterating, Burkina Faso cannot develop outside the line drawn by Thomas Sankara. Basically, he is kind of like an acolyte or a supporter of Thomas Sankara. Girl, let me tell you, this is oof. Now, here's the point. It says, meanwhile, President Traore himself, refusing to take any presidential salary, remains on the same income he has had in military captain in order to show his spirit of sacrifice, which must inhabit each Burkinabe in the current situation of the country. Your thoughts?
It's just beautiful. It's beautiful. You know what I'm saying? This country has enough of their own resources. If they only stop neocolonialism, they can thrive and they can be stronger people. And that's really, you know, I think it's very rare. I mean, this is probably one of the most recent socialist uprisings that we are able to witness. I'm very excited for what's happening. For so long, you know, well, I'm here for African liberation, okay? I think, you know what I mean? I think that the socialism and the economy and the people being provided for and everybody having what they need is the bare minimum that every country should strive for, you know?
Miguel is funny. MAGA, make Africa great again.
Whoa.
Oh, that's gonna make him mad.
Well, you know, and then you're gonna hear these pundits saying this isn't a bad thing. Like, you know, it's like how they frame China. Like, but at what cost?
At what cost?
The cost of people surviving pandemics, the cost of people having all their needs met. What? Why is this a bad thing? No, I think it's beautiful.
Yeah. Now, let me continue here. Man, this is a long thread. I can't read it because I'm only on number 8. But I'll get to the gist of it. It says, simultaneously, President Traore remains faithful to the will of Burkinabe masses to follow in the footsteps of Mali under President Assimi Goïta, whose decision to withdraw Mali as another puppet of the French Précaré is causing shockwaves in the region. There he is on the left. I'm sorry, on the right. It says, the liberation of the Malian masses under President Goïta represents an alternative future for the states of the Francophone. Additionally, Mali has taken some measures to ban French state media such as France 24 and Radio France International until further notice. So they kicked out French media in Mali. Because this policy has held sway in Burkina Faso, with a correspondent from France 24 summoned before the Burkinabe Council of Superior Communication. Any definite conclusion from these tensions remain to be seen given the ongoing nature of the dispute. So this basically means what's going on is that France is being kicked out. And there's also unification with Russia. It says today, various grassroots Pan-African and patriotic organizations are calling for a closer relationship with Russia as emerging power, which, unlike France, has no history of covert regime change, monetary slavery, and economic subjugation on the continent. So people will say, "Oh my God, Russia is such an imperialistic nation," when in reality, that's just projection, because what African state has Russia actually done that against?
And forgive me if I'm jumping ahead again, but I do think I read that Vladimir Putin forgave some of the debt of these nations. The U.S. would never. They would never be, you know what I'm saying, so gracious. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, if you're pro-Russia, you're against this. And it's like, it's really not like that. It's really about everybody realizing that we have very limited time for action.
Mm-hmm.
We have very limited time to secure futures for ourselves. Yeah. And I don't think, not that I applaud censorship, but you have to understand the France media is going to be pro-France. They're going to frame this all, you know what I'm saying, the way they need to. And so I think that it was, a smart call on their behalf, because that it will definitely raise the alarm of, the whole world, global media. Oh, no, they kicked out France, and then you're going to get more attention to your cause. That was a very clever move, I think.
Yeah, and here's one of the big ones I wanted to show you. This is going to be interesting. So it starts off right here. It says, besides the direction of Burkina Faso under President Traoré can also be evaluated by this adamant support for a radical federation of African states with the phrase United States of Africa, entering popular lingo on the streets of Ouagadougou. I hope I said that correctly. Says around the same time, the French military withdrawal has been successfully fulfilled. Prime Minister Tembela met with neighboring President Goita and other Malian authorities to express their desire for unity among respective populations. He says, Tembela says, we are considering a federation today. This is our medium-term objective. We need everyone's support in this because as long as we remain isolated, we are fragile. The Malian Burkina Faso Federation will continue a much more decisive striking power. And this is the flag. Furthermore, Tembela qualifies his use of the term federation with reference to example of the Mali Federation, during which Mali, Senegal, Burkina Faso, and Benin have attempted but failed to form a unitary state during the latter half of the 1950s. And so basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to unite Africa, which is what Muammar Gaddafi tried to do back then, which led to his death at the hands of people like Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. And so now this is coming back up. And so now they're saying, no, we're going to unite Africa and we're going to use our resources for ourselves instead of you guys extracting our resources. So this it is getting real in Africa.
Yeah, I'm here for it. They stopped exports also, which is important to. I don't know if you mentioned that when in your breakdown, but these nations stopped exports of minerals and things like that. Usually, it's the United States that puts economic sanctions, but in this instance, with their unification, they're able to say, well, actually, we're going to keep our own resources. So how do you feel about that, West?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? How do you feel about that?
So this is out of the International. It says
Yeah.
France has the 4th largest gold reserves in the world thanks to Mali's gold mines.
Yep.
So look at this. France has no gold mines, but they have over 2.4 tons of gold reserves, but no mines. But then Mali has 860 gold mines, but no gold reserves. Make that make sense.
You know how it makes sense. Capitalism, colonialism.
And so that's what's happening in Mali. This is why, Mali's like, you know what? Get out, France. France is like, well, we're not going to send you guys aid anymore. Mali's like, motherfucker, we don't need aid because we got the money. We got the money. You don't. I'm sorry. I hate to curse like that, but it's like, y'all ain't got nothing.
Yeah.
Without us, what do you have?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. France is look, these countries, these African countries are showing France where they can shove it.
Yep.
And this is also another one. I can't read this entire thing because I don't think I'm going to have time. But this is out from the African Communist, their Twitter. This is their Twitter account, and they show the countries, primarily the Francophone countries. Francophone countries basically mean countries that were colonized by France, that they're French-speaking countries. So all the Francophone countries are ones that are in blue. The ones that are in teal are part Francophone, and then the ones in gray are other. So if you look here, you look in countries like Burkina Faso, and you look in countries like Niger. Look, you say Central African Republic, they say bye-bye. So it just goes to show that they're saying, yeah, no, you can get out. But this is also dangerous. And I'm going to tell you guys why it is dangerous. Because one of the things that is an issue is that there's also a pipeline. It says if the situation in Niger is not stabilized according to the standards of the West, there will be nothing for the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline, which according to the contractor's plans was supposed to supply the EU countries with as much as 30 billion cubic meters of Nigerian gas annually. So they were trying to bypass Russia because Russia was supplying gas to Western Europe. And now they're like, okay, well, we just get it from Africa. They're like, no, you don't. No, you don't. So here's Nigeria and here's Niger. And they're trying to go through Niger to Algeria, up through Morocco to get into Eastern Europe. I'm sorry, Western Europe. And so they're like, yeah, no, you're not doing that. We're gonna. France cannot be in our country no more. You guys are out.
And anybody who goes to take military action against Niger, all of these countries have a unified response. They're gonna treat it as a terrorist threat. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna treat it as a military threat, and so all of them being unified behind that is very significant right now. And I think it means a lot. You know what I'm saying, for the military to say we're all unified against these threats, these capitalistic enterprises, global threats that are coming and trying to steal all of our resources. We're going to treat them as if they are the criminals. And I think that that's very, I mean, it's the only good news I've had in a while. Like, I'm so, it's lovely to see this. I think they just recently, I think Algeria also signed on with the United African Nations.
Yeah. Of course, the United States had to, stick their grubby little head in and say something. Antony had something to say. It says the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken had stated that the removal of Niger's president Mohamed Bazoum last week put Washington's security cooperation with that nation in peril. The legitimate, okay, hold up, legitimate. The legitimate democratically elected government must be reinstated immediately. The U.S. has various military installations around Niger, including the enormous $110 million drone facility in Agadez, which was the largest base construction project in U.S. Air Force history. So, of course, they're going to condemn the coup.
Of course, Joffrey.
Yeah.
We are the legitimate puppets. We are. Like, if you have to say it that loud, they're really not legitimate after all, then are you?
Yeah, not really. Not really.
So this is perfect because the US is always, you know what I mean, they can't put their money where their mouths are. And Africa's got them running for their money. And France, you know what I mean? Because of course the US is gonna be like, oh, well, of course we want to prop up colonialism. We have to support France right now. But it's like, that's not the humanitarian response that's needed right now. You know, when you really, like, however you want to say it, there's a lot of people who are just, they only digest, you know, the propaganda. They may have questions, but it's like, if you look at it from a humanitarian aspect, they're just trying to take control of their resources. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I want to show this video really quick as well. This is going to be really good. This is about Mali. So let's go.
Here is your latest Africa news. Mali has just dropped French as its official language. Mali has taken a significant step in reshaping its identity as an independent nation by removing French as its official language. Move that comes more than 6 decades after gaining independence from French colonial rule. The decision was recently enshrined in the country's new constitution, which was adopted this year. The Constitutional Court of Mali validated the final results of a June referendum on the draft constitution, with an overwhelming 96.91% approval from voters. As per the new constitution,
91%?
Nice, beautiful.
91% among voters said, yeah, we don't want French as our official language anymore.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
I think we barely got 87% for Medicare for all. You know what I mean? Among voters, like, that's amazing.
Like what if Puerto Rico, Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela, Chile, what if all those countries suddenly said, you know what? Spanish will no longer be our primary language. Out with Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Or what if the United States, Canada, Jamaica, Virgin Islands, what if we all said, yeah, English won't be our official language anymore? I didn't do that. It just went straight to.
I love it. Look at his face. Oh my god.
Oh Lord, this is hilarious.
I love this.
Let's continue.
French will still retain its position as the primary working language in the country for the moment, till other alternatives are made available. However, a noteworthy change is the formal recognition of the 13 national languages spoken within Mali as official languages. This recognition signifies a long overdue acknowledgement of the linguistic diversity and cultural richness that exists within the nation. Moreover, the new constitution retains an additional 70 local languages, including Bambara, Bobo, Dogon, and Minyanka, some of which were previously granted national language status through a decree in 1982. Preserving these local languages reflects the government's commitment to nurturing the unique heritage of various regions within Mali.
Let me ask you this, Delilah. How would you feel if the languages of the indigenous nations in the United States were, preserved? Because I know a lot of those languages were lost because of colonialism.
So I can speak a little bit on the fact that Nahuatl has been spoken throughout South America and Mexico continually. So there's a lot of work in restoring that language and making it more common. There's a lot of people doing a lot of really good work to make sure that this language is preserved and it's still used and it's still intact. It's older than Latin and Spanish. I can speak a little bit about that because I'm very involved with the learning and the teachings of that, because when you speak your native tongue, you say words that your ancestors spoke, it brings you that much closer to your cultural ties and your identity. So it is very important. But on the other hand, we have places, people, these neo-colonial structures, especially the education system in the US, there are people who have pretty much stolen language and gatekeep it away from natives and indigenous people in this country. So there's some struggles right now trying to make sure that the people who are sharing this knowledge are not being exploited. You know what I'm saying? And they're not being kept from teaching that knowledge to others. There's been a few instances where these academics have stolen languages and tried to keep them for themselves and profit off of those languages and the teachings versus, support the tribes where the knowledge is coming from. So that's another issue. As far as preservation goes, let the people preserve it as they wish and at least recognize it,
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that as well. I appreciate it. Let me continue.
Mali's interim president, Assimi Goïta, declared that the implementation of the new constitutional framework marks the inception of the Fourth Republic in the former French colony. This significant moment signals Mali's renewed path as an independent and sovereign nation. The decision to remove French as the official language also reflects the evolving dynamics in the relationship between Mali and its former colonial ruler, France. In recent years, there has been a noticeable surge in anti-French sentiment across France's former West African colonies. This sentiment has been fueled by France's continued exploitation of its former colony. France's decision to withdraw its troops from Mali in August marked the end of a 9-year military operation aimed at combating armed groups in the region. The withdrawal further impacted the bilateral relations between Paris and Bamako, leading to a halt in development aid to Mali and the cessation of operations for NGOs and aid groups funded by France in the country as punishment for the rebellion. In conclusion, Mali's decision to remove French as its official language and the formal recognition of national and local languages within the country represents a crucial step in asserting its cultural identity and linguistic diversity. This move comes amidst a period of political transformation and rebuilding, as Mali looks forward to the establishment of a new democratic era. As the nation embarks on the journey of the Fourth Republic, it stands as an example of asserting national sovereignty and promoting linguistic and cultural heritage.
And that's the point, right, Delilah? It's sovereignty, national sovereignty among themselves, self-determination.
Yes.
And it's like, why is that a problem? And if they want to get rid of the dogmatic religious elements within their own country by their own means, let them do it themselves. And honestly, if they want to, let them have their own self-determination. Let them use their own resources, like their own gold, in order to enrich their country so that they can build up their means of public safety within their borders. Why does the West have to interfere and say, oh, we'll come and protect you? It's like, we don't need your protection. We got the gold to pay our people. We don't need you.
Yeah, it's always under the guise of peace and democracy, but really it's about, holding power over resources, holding power over people. And that's, this is why This is why we say land back. You know what I'm saying? Because you're not gonna legislate and like give us favors for us to be able to continue on with our survival. That's not enough. You know what I'm saying? We have to be able to determine what we want to do with our resources, what we want to do with our land, how we want to continue our culture. And all these new colonial powers are just greedy, really. You know, you think about all of the wealth and the individuals who hold that wealth. Of course they have ties to France, or they have ties to the US or Canada. You know what I'm saying? Because that's where a majority of the theft has happened.
Yeah. And it's just like with, the West, they always have something, negative to say because it goes against their, hegemony. Like, for instance, NPR saying supporters of Niger's coup march, waving Russian flags and denouncing France. They make it sound as if, oh my God, these supporters, they're being duped by these people, and they say Russian mercenary group, the Wagner Group, is already operating in neighboring Mali, and Russian President Vladimir Putin would like to expand his country's influence in the region, but it's unclear whether yet the new junta leaders are moving towards Moscow or stick with Niger's Western partners. The thing is that, I mean, from what it looks like, they are going to be more sympathetic to Russia, and it's just like what you said. Vladimir Putin forgave a lot of debt from African countries just recently.
Yes, and that's where it's like peace talks don't really mean anything if you are still oppressing the people that live there.
Yeah.
You can have meetings, it's like the global, economic forums and things like that. All of this is in real time happening, and you've got the president of Russia saying, we're going to forgive debt. No other Western leader, you know what I'm saying, would be willing to be humble enough to make that dedication to other people and other nations in order to foster peace. So exactly. 2.3. Yeah. Okay, there you go.
Yep, 23 billion debt for Africa. He writes off. It says Vladimir Putin, Russian president, says the Russian government has written off the $23 billion in debt burden off of African countries. Putin spoke at the plenary session for the ongoing second Russia-Africa summit in 2023, holding from the 27th to the 28th, so last week. He said Moscow will allocate an additional $90 million for these purposes.
Nice.
Putin said Russia was advocating expansion of representation of African countries in the UN Security Council and UN structures. He said Russia and Africa strive to develop cooperation in areas and strengthen honest, open, collective partnership. Russia will also assist in opening new African embassies and consulates in Russia. So my thing is like,
we could have done that.
Sorry, go ahead.
Years ago. We could have tried. We could have been, you know what I mean, more than just talk.
Well, I mean, look, China also forgave billions and billions of dollars in loans in Africa as well.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. And yet people will say, oh my God, they're trying to trap them via debt. And I'm like, what, you mean like the IMF and the World Bank?
See, this is how we're not going to get your channel monetized.
Maybe I'm already monetized, so I ain't got nothing to worry about.
I'm so grateful because, you need to have, I don't know. It's important. I think it's important to have truth tellers out there. You know what I'm saying? It's like everybody's willing. Most people are willing to lie for money. Most people are willing to, not tell the truth.
Zoe said Mali and Burkina Faso just announced solidarity with Niger, and we'll see any foreign interventions in Niger as a declaration of war.
That part. Yes. I don't want people to go to war. I you know what I mean? I don't want there to be this huge military intervention, but I do think it's very brave for them to all be, collectively working together to make sure that their people have futures. At this point, I mean, there's been so many years of theft and colonial rule. You know what I'm saying? Even what was it? They just left in August. France barely pulled their military back. I mean, so what were you doing this whole time? We know what they're doing. So yeah, I think it's great. I'm excited. I'm watching the story very closely.
Now I don't want to, because I don't want to take too much of your time, but I still have my story regarding Grindr, and then my rant I have to come up with. I'm not sure if you're okay to stick around, or
I don't know. Yeah, I could stay around for a little bit longer, but yeah, I gotta.
Okay. I'll make it quick. So one of the last things I want to bring up about this story is that there was a gentleman. I wish I can, go over this clip, but it'll go over a little too long. But one of the things he was talking about was the new president of Burkina Faso. He was in the military, and in countries like Burkina Faso, in Niger, and Mali, their soldiers do not make much at all. They make about $100 per month, $50 to $100 a month, versus a soldier here in the United States will make, $50 in 2 hours. That just shows the difference. So basically what he explains is that in order for you to be a soldier in Burkina Faso or in Niger or Mali, you have to be extremely patriotic in order to do that job. And so for someone like the president, Ibrahim Traore, it really is just about patriotism and being in that position. And now he is now the president of Burkina Faso, and he's also saying a lot of the same things that Thomas Sankara said. So it just goes to show that it's not actually money that's being driven, at least that what we can know of right now. But really, the goal is really to build up the nation from the ground up instead of through imperialist forces. Just wanted to add that point.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think, I would probably just say it's more a dedication to the people than a dedication towards any, like you have nationalism in the US, which is concerning, right? Yeah. But then you've got national organizing in other countries, and you can see what a good collective organizing structure looks like. And it's not capitalistic. And that's a big difference.
Definitely. Now, if you guys have not, then please make sure to like the stream as well. If you guys have not, please make sure to do so. And also, if you guys have not, then you guys can also always go to my Substack for email notifications, at jaybefaunt.substack.com. All right, so the next story I'm going to touch on is Grindr. I'm going to make this really quick because I want to be respectful of Delilah's time. But Grindr starting a union? This has got to be like, what? All right.
I love it. Well, okay, so there was a group of strippers that unionized.
Huh?
There was a group of strippers that were working to unionize.
Oh, really?
Like a good portion of the pandemic, and they finally got all the signatures. So there's a union of strippers in the world, in the US. They were successful. So this is the next step, right? This is, we're talking about self-determination, and it's like in this country, women who completely own their own selves is so offensive to the patriarchy and so offensive to capitalism. And I love it because it's like, why shouldn't they unionize? You know what I'm saying? Why shouldn't every worker have all of the demands that they need met, especially in one of the wealthiest nations? So that's exciting. I'm glad to hear that.
That's true. So let's get into this. So, and this has some elements that I was just like, what? So it says staff at Grindr, the world's largest LGBTQ dating app, are unionizing. Now, anybody that's queer knows about Grindr. Look, hold up. Let me take this down pretty quick.
Y'all been using this app since it started. So.
Hold up. Get off me. Okay, so Grindr is a hookup app. Let's be real. Let's call a thing. All right? Because if you're around somebody and you hear their phone go, then you know that somebody's trying to hit them up some booty. Let's be real. All right?
Yeah.
Anywho, that app is actually, they're trying to unionize. And with, I know that app because I used to have that app back in the day. You know what I'm saying? JB had to get it in. You know what I'm saying? So, workers at Grindr, the popular long-running LGBTQ dating app, have announced a supermajority support for forming a union. Jackman talked to 2 Grindr workers about their demands. Because on Thursday, July 20th, workers at Grindr, the popular and long-running LGBTQ dating app, announced that they were unionizing with the Communication Workers of America. A supermajority of Grindr workers has signed union cards, and they are asking the company to voluntarily recognize their new union. Workers are seeking greater job security among volatility in the tech industry, guarantees against being forced to return to the office, and representation on Grindr's board of directors, among other demands. Worker organizers also say that their union drive was in part motivated by revelations that their new CEO, George Harrison, has expressed support for and donated to anti-LGBTQ politicians. This is a gay man. Hold up. This is a gay dude that is supporting anti-LGBTQ politicians.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a slap in the face.
Look, like I always said, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. Just because you're queer like me, it don't mean nothing. That means that you are not for your own liberation. Now, some people may be asking, well, who did this CEO, who did he actually, who did he donate to? And who did he, who is he behind?
Was it DeSantis?
Oh, okay.
Don't tell me.
Let me show you. All right, so this is him, right? Now, it says the right-wing political views of the head of Grindr are causing some users to delete the popular dating and hookup app. Make it just bigger. Oh gosh. Anyway, I'm gonna bypass that. It says tag delete Grindr is trending after news incoming CEO of George Harrison previously tweeted that he was a conservative who supported some of the positions of then President Donald Trump, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin. Harrison, who is gay, starts his new job on October 19th. That was last year. He said, FYI, I'm a conservative and agree with some of Trump's policies. And he deleted the tweet.
Screenshots are forever.
He said that Youngkin should totally run for president. He said he expressed support for DeSantis in another tweet from January. In the retweet, he wrote that the man who championed the Don't Say Gay law was not ideal, but agreed the Republican governor was better suited to advance a new, more combative and populist party.
A more combative populist party? All right, that's a dog whistle. I mean, this is the worst. I'm telling you. So, I'm sorry. I don't mean to keep cutting you off, but it's like this guy is basically saying, like, I don't care that you guys have to worry about your lives. I don't care if a mob comes and harms you and your family or your community. I'm comfortable where I am.
Yeah.
That's not solidarity. That's not what, you know what I mean? No. So, yeah. So he made this crap decision, you know what I'm saying? And he's trying to exist in these spaces while also support people being brutalized, you know, and now they're gonna good. I'm glad they're gonna unionize. That he can be replaced.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is that when you have people like this guy, here's the thing: just because you're gay or trans or queer in any way, shape, or form, if you do not have class consciousness and if you're not a class traitor, especially if you're in the PMC, professional managerial class, you don't care about liberation for your people. You're going to just say, I got mine, screw the rest of you. And we need to realize that just because somebody's queer, just because somebody's gay, it doesn't mean that they're still not going to be colonialist. It doesn't mean they're not going to be imperialist. It doesn't mean that they're not going to want to exploit people. Some of them are game for it.
Yeah.
And
some of them are compensated for that also.
Right.
How did he get into this position anyway to become CEO? How many conversations happened? Yeah, them aligning with the capitalist class is we don't have to make space for that anymore. You know what I'm saying?
No, we don't. And rainbow capitalism will not save us.
No capitalism is going to save us.
None.
Facts.
And so guys like this, like, screw him, because the thing is that, number one, I am all for the unionization of Grindr. Go ahead, y'all unionize. But while we're at it, Grindr, Scruff, Bigger City, Growler, Chaseable, all the apps, all of them. And look, if y'all can get into doing a co-op instead, please do. Please do. Let me know.
Yes.
Because I'm sick and tired. And also, while we're at it, another thing that needs to be said: white gays, y'all need to do the work of anti-racism. Because yes, racism exists in the gay community. I said what I said.
No, it's true. And honestly, there have been 2 queer people who have been murdered recently. There have been straight women who are accosted in restrooms now because of all of this legislation, all this rhetoric against, why is this a problem? Why are we still dealing with this? Like, if the civil rights movement was so successful, if all these movements were so successful, why are we still fighting? Like, why are we still having to rally to keep our communities safe, from bigotry and hatred? And I think it's very concerning. I'm glad people are paying more attention, like you brought up RFK Jr. earlier and the money that he's getting. Pay attention to who's getting money from where. You know what I'm saying? All of these people who are racist, who are against, LGBTQI communities, they're on somebody's payroll. And that's the big concern that we have to keep an eye out for. Because of course they're going to keep inflaming the police state. Of course they're going to keep uplifting, white supremacy and all of that. So anyway, yeah, we have to remain vigilant, and we can't vote our way. I say this unironically as a politician. We cannot simply vote our way out of these things, out of these situations. We have to be organized against them.
Yep. And so I didn't want to spend too much time on this one, but that's some good news. That's a bright spot. That Grindr is trying to unionize. I talked to my boyfriend about it. He was like, I don't like Grindr. I still don't like Grindr, but I'm glad they're using it.
I mean, but would you like to work for a union company? Probably,
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah, workers should have their rights. I know I can't stay much longer. So is it okay if I plug a website real quick before I go?
Sure.
Okay, so the folks at the General Strike Revolution have strike cards. Because I still do believe that a general strike, stay-at-home strike, would be able to give us a better seat at the table. So yes, it's www.generalstrikerevolution.wordpress.com, and please sign the strike card. It doesn't matter what industry you work in. As many people as we can get to sign would be great. So just wanted to plug that real quick. And thank you for having me on. I always love talking to you, and good conversation all around. You're great.
Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate. If you can put that website in the private chat so I can show it to the audience so that they have it and see what it looks like.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it because I want people to have all the information that they can. And by the way, guys, a lot of information I was saying on the live stream today, all that information is also in the description below, so you guys can go ahead and look at that as well and be able to share that information too, because it is deeply important that we talk about these different topics that I've been covering. So yeah. And did you put it in the private chat?
I'm gonna do it right now. I'm just gonna say bye, and then I'll mute myself and everything. So.
All right. Take care, Delilah. Thank you so very much for coming. And I'm sorry I didn't get to the rant yet, but you'll be able to hear it. You know, I got some things to say, and I think you'll be in agreement. So
I'm sure I will. You're usually on point. So thank you so much for having me. It's good to see you.
All right. Take care, sis.
Bye.
All right. So before we do that, I'll get that website up in a second as soon as she puts it in, and then we can move on to my rant because I got a rant on something, and I'm just, something I gotta get off my chest regarding how we look at people in this nation and how we anyway. So I'm gonna go to the chat really quick. One of the things I wanted to do was go to Serena, because I know she said this earlier. She said, I know some will think we're being too hard on Jimmy Dore, but come on, people are being tortured and murdered, and we don't have time to be nice to those supporting that. Yeah, agreed. Baba Yaga Forestwell said, I DM'd you on couple occasions and no response, asking if I can send him water bob and any water filtration apparatus, asking for a PO. No response. I'm sorry. I don't know if I got that. Send it to me again. I'm sorry. I don't remember. I'm sorry. But send it to me again so that I can take a look at it. My apologies. I think I'm so scatterbrained. Oh gosh. My apologies, Baba. And then there is the link to what Delilah put out there. And let me show you guys here. It says General Strike Revolution. Collectively, we are unstoppable. So this is the website that she was talking about. So it says fill out a General Strike card now. So everyone has the right to nutrition, shelter, clothing, recreation, health, education, and income. Now it's the time for action. General Strike. Here is every reform needed to bring about economic, environmental justice for a planet and humanity. This will be done by a stay-at-home worker strike. There's no army in the world large enough to force everyone to work. If all striking workers stay inside, there will be no protesters attacked or jailed, no propaganda of rioting strikers, or emergency laws declared. Do not work, watch TV, go online, shop, or leave the house. Bring the global economy to a halt. If you don't consume the media, you cannot be propagandized into believing their fear-mongering of the powers that be. No work and no consumption means all the powerful will be rendered powerless. The only way to hurt them is to hurt them in the pocketbook. Our nonviolent revolution can be an example that will spread all over the world. Every revolution needs a declaration of demands. These are the demands of the impoverished masses yearning to be free. And it goes over those demands as well. So thank you so very much to Delilah for coming in. Appreciate this. I'm gonna give this a look later, and I put the link in the chat so you guys can give it a look as well. All right, so oh yeah, the rest of the chat. And Cobra Commander says, "What a time to be alive! We're going to see the world rise up. We are jolly giants walking the earth with guns. Ho ho ho! Green giant." Creative Experiment says the Mexican Revolution was not against Spain; it was against dictator Diaz and General Huerta. Both aren't Spanish. Oh, interesting. Yipper99 says student loans, credit scores, and credit cards. Yeah. Gotta get rid of those too. Creative Experiment says Mexico is not nice to natives either. Let me see. That's a good question, Yipper. Does this mean that the U.S. Revolution was a coup and should be condemned? I mean, right? I mean, wasn't it General George Washington that led the revolution and became the first president? If that's the case, then that sounds like a military coup to me. Cobra Commander says, literally Africa and the global south, China and Russia are our allies. American leftists have nuance and listen to xenophobia and Russophobia. That's true. That's true. Like, we're not saying that they're perfect, but at the same time, it's like, damn, they're doing a lot better than what the United States does for these countries. Like, whoa. All right, so I'm going to get to my last thing. It's going to be the rant. Oh, gosh. Y'all going to be in for an earful now because I got some things to say. So we're going to get to here, the rant. So JB rants, and you guys going to see what I have to say because, good Lord. All right, so let me find the tweets that I put up. Oh, almost there. All right. Let me share screen. Share it. All right. I'm about to go off. I said, this isn't a victory for this mom. This is a stain on our society. I swear, the twisted logic of some people on Facebook. For F's sake. This is a post on Facebook. It says, I can't make this up. I can't make this up. Times are tough for everyone. But I salute this queen. She didn't have no babysitter, but still came to work. It's real here, y'all. And here you go. A young mom with her baby on her hip while she's working behind the counter. This looks like Burger King. Is that Burger King or McDonald's? No, baby, that's McDonald's. Yep, I can recognize that. Yeah, my chubby behind would recognize McDonald's. But anyways, yeah. So, yeah, also she has on the Grimace shirt. That's why. She has on Grimace shirt. This isn't a victory. The mere fact, let me leave this up. The mere fact that you have a mother struggling to work and she has to bring her baby with her to work is absolutely disgusting. Now, I'm going to say this. You applaud the mom, you applaud all parents for the dedication that they do for the dedication that they have, of course, right? But I think this is misplaced. I ultimately do not think that we should be applauding this, because she shouldn't have to do this in the first place. So here's my thing. I wrote down some notes because it keeps me on track. But I got to say this. This is what I like to call unnecessary adversity porn. We will see someone go through something unnecessary, some unnecessary adversity, and then cheer on that person with a yes, queen, or yes, king. Or we see somebody going through something, we go, oh. And then in reality, that action shouldn't have to be done in the first place. You're going to hear me say that often. So say it with me. Whenever I say in the first place, I don't care. Say it with me, okay? Now, there are examples of, there'll be people like, there was a story of a gentleman walking miles to work, day in and day out, dedication. And then somehow they find out that he's walking miles to work, right? And the heat and the cold and the weather. And then they'll get him a used car and be like, oh my God, they got him a used car. Yay! Without asking the question, why did he have to walk miles and miles to work in the first place? Or you'll have a story of a little girl selling lemonade to raise funds to pay for somebody's cancer treatment. Or you'll have the story of a little boy raising funds to pay for his classmates to have school lunches. These examples fool us into accepting the system that causes us to unnecessarily suffer by making us marvel at the humanity of others, but never allows us to ask, why should they be going through this adversity? Say it with me, in the first place. Why don't we have social programs in place so that we don't need to go through this? Capitalism. This breeds an environment of need that produces guaranteed profit when paywalled. Need clean water? Paywall it. Need healthcare? Paywall it. Need transportation? Paywall it. Need education? Paywall it. Need housing? Paywall it. Need food? Paywall it. And on and on and on. I'm going to say all this to help us think more critically when this system and these stories like this come up, so that we won't be fooled. Now, does this young mother deserve our admiration and support? Yes. But the fact is that she and all parents shouldn't have to go through this, say it with me, in the first place. Why don't we have universal parental leave? It's inhumane and psychotic. If we want to improve our mental health, we have to change the system. It's not just an individual issue. If we want to improve our physical health, we must change the system, not just our individual lives. Do not accept this BS that these corporate dictators throw at you to make you accept this societal situation. This quote encompasses everything that I think that we should do. When a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. if we truly want to improve people's lives, it's the environment in which we have that needs to change. It's not some one-off that some people are just lazy. When you have half the country that can't afford a $400 emergency, what does that mean? That means that it's a systemic issue, not an individual one. This is why you have many of us that are looking outside of the realms of capitalism, and we're saying enough is enough. This is why we're going to look at different new social orders, different new economic systems that actually work better for the people. And when people say something like, oh my God, the United States is great, doing great according to our GDP, who owns all the wealth? Not us. It's not us. It is the greedy corporate dictators that are hoarding all the wealth. And when people go, well, you live in the most wealthiest country in the world, that's like saying to a poor person that is enslaved, that's working in the basement, you guys live in the biggest we're poor, living in the basement of this mansion, being treated like shit. Just because we're living in the mansion doesn't mean we're living in the mansion. And so miss me with that BS. Because most of the people in this country are still in the basement. And we're not allowed to go upstairs. We're not allowed to use the restroom upstairs. We're not allowed to use the living room. We're not allowed to use the laundry room. We're not allowed to go to the backyard. We're not allowed to go upstairs into the room. We're not allowed to use the TV room or the media room. We're not allowed to use the bedrooms. We're not allowed to sleep on the bed. We had to sleep. Some of us had to sleep on the bare concrete floor. Some of us had to sleep on a couple of sheets. But guess what? We're still suffering. That's what it's like living in the United States of America. Because only a couple people actually live in the suites upstairs and the master bedroom and in the other bedroom suites. We don't get it. We're all crammed downstairs in the basement. We don't even get to be in the living rooms. That's what it's like. And if people don't wake up, guess what? We're going to bang. We're going to bang on that door, and we're going to eventually knock that door down. And once we knock it down, we're coming and we're taking the rooms. We're not going to ask anymore. Tupac said it. We're not going to be asking anymore. We're taking that shit. We're done. We are done with suffering. Hundreds of thousands of people every single year dying because they don't have health care. People will go, oh my God, so many kids are suffering from hunger because their parents are suffering from hunger too. People that look like me are being shot in the back in the streets, and they're trying to build a militarized police base in Atlanta so that we don't exercise our First Amendment rights. And for any of you that got a "Don't Tread on Me" flag, you guys are standing by while people that look like me are being tread on day after day. Shame on you. Shame on you. You guys got militias training out in the woods day after day, and yet you guys will look at the news and make excuses for us being shot in the back. Shame on you. And then some of you will stand behind a politician that will do mediocre things. And some of y'all who are in independent media, yes, some of you will stand behind a politician and say, oh, every 2 to 4 years, well, we just got to stand behind this person. Some of you, like Emma Vigeland, yes, I'm calling out names, will speak condescendingly to me online because you're comfortable. That's what it is. You're comfortable. And I'm sick and tired of it. You're comfortable in your studios, sitting your ass down. And then every 2 to 4 years, well, do you want the right-wingers to take over? Guess what? The Democratic Party is also right-wing. I don't want none of them to take over. I'm sick and tired. They already took over years and years ago. I'm sick and tired of them. This is an issue of having a sense of urgency. And some people are too rich to even notice that that they need to have a sense of urgency. They're comfortable. Whereas you got people, not just people who are sleeping out in the streets, people who are sleeping in our living rooms, who don't have anything to call their own. And so when people want to come to me and talk about, oh well, we have a issue with Ron DeSantis. He may come into power. You guys don't see what Biden is doing? Biden agrees more with DeSantis than anybody. Biden is no different than Trump. This is why so many of us are leaving the duopoly. Because some of y'all will make excuses and go, oh, yay, this person is being productive and taking their kids to work, when in reality, she shouldn't even have to be at work in the first place. She should be at home taking care of her baby. She shouldn't have to worry about housing. She shouldn't have to worry about healthcare. She shouldn't have to worry about childcare. She shouldn't have to worry about education. She should not have to worry. Period. And people want to talk about, oh, yay, yes, queen. She's at work with her baby in tow. No, absolutely not. She shouldn't have to. If you are a liberal and you think, yes, we have to support women, why aren't you for universal health care? Why aren't you for universal child care? Why aren't you for defunding the police? And if you are, why do you support politicians that don't? Why do you support a party that doesn't? And don't give me that, oh, well, the Republicans. No, they are all one party. Wake up. That's it. They're all together. I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I wish that you were sick and tired of looking at us being sick and tired while you go to brunch, while you're sitting there drinking your mimosas on Sunday and eating bruschetta. Get some empathy, will you? Get some empathy. Look at us. Talk to us. Get out of your studios. Get out on the streets. Talk to us. Because we're not okay. Talk to somebody that's disabled. We're not okay. Talk to somebody that's black. We're not okay. Talk to somebody that's trans. We're not okay. Talk to somebody that's neurodivergent. We're not okay. This is what we need. Empathy. And we're tired. We're tired of people looking past us and saying that you just need to wait a little bit longer. Stop being the white liberal that MLK warned us about, because you are keeping the knife in our backs. You're not even willing to pull it out. You're saying just wait a little longer instead of actually letting us go to the hospital and pulling the knife out all the way and then healing us. Yeah, we may not be bleeding out as fast according to you, but we're still bleeding. Love and empathy will save this nation, but not at the cost of your comfort. To the privileged, equality feels like oppression. It's time for you to feel uncomfortable in order for everyone to have a decent standard of living. There should be no homelessness in this country. There should be no hunger. There should be access to education for all. Nobody should be gatekept or paywalled for the basic necessities of life. So stand with us. If you're making $100, $200, $300, $400,000 a year, stand with us. If you're middle class, upper middle class, stand with us. If you really care. If you have a rainbow flag in your bio, or if you say Black Lives Matter, mean it. Because we're tired. And we're sick and tired of this adversity porn that's thrown in our faces. It's not worth it. Because we're still suffering. That mother is still suffering. This past the Yas Queens, past the awws, past all that, she's still suffering. She shouldn't have to. And don't come at me with, well, we got to GoFundMe for her, blah, blah, blah. No. See, that's still individualistic. We need to do this systematically. If you're not willing to do it systematically, are you really for us? Or are you just trying to patch up your conscience a little bit? Empathy will save us. So that's my rant. I didn't mean to go off like that, but I'm in the thick of it. Like, people will see me on my own channel and be like, oh, well, they'll assume that JB's doing okay. I'm not okay. I'm not. I can't afford to live on my own. If I could, I would, but I can't. I also have an elderly mother that I'm also making sure that she's okay too. She can't afford to be on her own. I can't afford to be on my own. So this is why I know what it's like, because I'm literally living it just like you. If you guys haven't already, make sure to give me a like on the stream, as well as if you guys have not subscribed to my Substack, go to jaybefaunt.substack.com. All right. So I'm going to go to the chat really quick before I head on out, because, yeah. All right. Cobra Commander says, this makes me want to be very anarchist and burn everything. Oh, man, I got you. I get you. Creative Experiments said, I grew up in a workaholic household. It is brainwashing. Yeah. Yep. Zombie in the Air says, extreme bootstrapping. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Miguel. Thank you. I try to come up with the best analogies that I can. Good to see you, Terry. I see you. All right. What he says, undercover boss baby. Yeah, undercover boss is just a ploy to make bosses and people who are super rich, make them look good, when in reality they're still exploitative. Miguel says, it's like saying, but you are the butler of the queen. You clean the queen's shit. Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm privileged just because I clean out a chamber pot for the king. Serena says, I quote, I don't want to survive. I want to live. A quote from Wall-E. I still haven't seen that movie. I heard it was good, though. Mm-hmm. Pobe Pool says, is this pre-recorded? Nope. This is live, baby. Let me see who else. Angela, good to see Angela. It says, and JB said, bring the fire. And the fire. I didn't mean to go off that much, but it's just, when I think of people suffering, man, it's just, oh, because the thing is like, it's almost like I'm okay with me suffering, but other people, you know what I'm saying? Other people, having to go through what I go through or worse. I'm like, hell no, that's not right, man. I see people, having to beg out in the streets. I'm seeing people, hell, even people who are, have their own home, but they have to worry about, their health care, or their car's not working too well, or it's hard for them to get out the house. It just gripes me, because the thing is that people are suffering needlessly. That's the thing. It's like, this is unnecessary. And you know what I hate is when people go, when we say it's not fair, they'll go, well, life's not fair. I'm like, then stop exacerbating the unfairness. Stop making it worse. You're making it worse. You're co-signing on making it worse. Of course life's not fair, but why should we make it worse? It's crazy. Yeah, I'll probably clip this, but I don't know how much traffic it's going to get. But thank you so much, Angela. You're very sweet. Serena says, my mama can't wait any longer. And the people telling us are taunting us who couldn't wait. It feels like a joke, honestly. I see what you mean, Rick. Thank you so very much. Got CBC voter up in here. Good to see. QB Socialista. Thank you so very much. Yes, this is a great one, Angela. That's exactly how I feel. And if I'm able to help someone, I do. Have you ever noticed it's poor people helping other poor people? Always. Yes, there was a quote that I saw years ago. It was on Facebook. It said that the people who have the least always end up giving the most. And that's how it is, man. And so, yeah, so I hope that you all, I hope what I said was cathartic for you. But yes, if you do believe in electoral politics, stay out of the duopoly. Just stay out, because they're not looking for your best interests. I don't care how promising they sound. They're not going to be successful. And ultimately, it's really just going to lead to a book tour and an endorsement of Biden. I'm just saying. Mark my words. And if you don't believe in electoral politics, even if you do or you don't, join an organization, or even if you don't want to, at least you're doing something for your neighbors, or do something for people in your inner circle that helps them materially. And then when you help them materially, also help them intellectually to know why they're going through what they're going through, and help them also figure out the solutions as to how they can help. And that solution is building class consciousness and telling people the facts about what our country's doing. Don't let them go, oh, well, this country has a dictator and that country has a dictator. It's like, no, get the actual information on the ground, not some biased information that's biased towards empire, and get the information. Now, of course, all these countries are not perfect at all by no means, but they're doing a lot better for their people than the United States is doing for its people. So, yeah. Okay, so I got to get going. I have my Marxism class in a little bit, so I got to get going. I have to go. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in today. You know, as far as, you know, figuring out what's going on with the Palestinians, there is a United States Palestinian community network that I recommend that you guys follow. They are doing great work on the ground. They were actually part of the Labor Organizing Summit recently. So if you guys would like to, you guys can go follow them. You know, if you're on Twitter, or if you're not on Twitter, I can give you guys the website. So this is the U.S. Palestinian Community Network, so that you guys can connect and get the facts on the ground about what's happening. Indie News Network, if you guys have not subscribed to them, they're great. Shout out to Indie News Network. They cover stuff like this too. You guys can also go to Heartlands Media, Mint Press News. Ron Placone's really good on this stuff. Midwestern Marks, Misty Winston, she's amazing. She's my homie. You guys can go to people like that, and they will give you the facts on the ground regarding what's going on in Palestine. But there is the link to the U.S. Palestinian community, and then let me go to the website just so you guys can have that. So you guys can have that as well. Because it's important to get the facts on the ground, especially according to the people who are the most oppressed and disenfranchised, so that you guys can have those tools equipped for actually speaking out against the atrocities that are committed against people, because we need to speak out against these things as much as possible. All right, paste. Okay. So make sure to put those in your repertoire, your war chest, as it were. And as well as, try to, stay healthy. Like I always say, water your plants, water yourselves, but make sure it doesn't have 1,4-dioxane. Try to keep as, healthy as you possibly can. Leave the world better than you found it. Support unions. And if you can go further, support co-ops, worker co-ops. Smoke if you got them, drink them if you got them, if you ain't got them. Watch something hilarious. Watch something funny, because joy is revolutionary. Oh, wait, did I show this? Thanks to all the patrons on Patreon and Coffee, as well as members. Yes, I also do memberships. And also thank you to anyone that sends me a super chat as well. These are all welcome. And anybody that sends me any type of mutual aid via Cash App, Venmo, or PayPal, I appreciate all those as well, because a brother's going through it. But thank you so very much to everybody. If you have not, then you guys can go to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com so you guys can be aware of all the email notifications. And I also just want to give another shout out to Colin from Indie News Network for my poster. My poster is by Frederick Douglass, and it's basically, power concedes nothing without a demand, and it never have, and it never will. And so, that whole quote is basically one of the premises that I take inspiration from that. So shout out to Colin once again for that as well. And by the way, I'll be getting into Assata Shakur's autobiography. And if you guys have not, I've already read, I think chapter 14, and next chapter will be chapter 15 of Assata Shakur's autobiography. And then I will be getting into the next part of the chapter in the book Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price. I'll be getting into, I think it's chapter 3, part 2. So yeah, I'll be getting into Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price later this week. I cannot wait. So be sure to stay tuned for those. So thank you so very much for tuning in, everybody. And I already said my exit, but forehead kisses to every single one of you because you all deserve it. You all are lovely people. Let the light surround you and illuminate the world. And free Palestine.
Thank you.